One thing is absolutely certain in the iron-clad, unforgiving economy of the entertainment industry. When you hire Samuel L. Jackson, you are not just hiring a face for a poster. You are hiring a black actor who refuses to be anything other than exactly what he is. For over 4 decades, he has been the ultimate cinematic anomaly, a man who has generated a staggering $27 billion at the global box office while consistently telling the Hollywood machine to go to hell. If you wrote a script and didn't see a black man when you wrote it, he will remind you of your blindness. If you put words in his mouth that don't match the rhythm of his soul, he will rewrite them in front of your face. He is the Jedi Master who demanded a purple lightsaber just so he could find himself in a crowded battle scene, and he is the Ezekiel-quoting hitman who violently redefined pop culture in the 1990s. But today, at 76 years old, the man who survived the concrete grit of Chattanooga and the chemical haze of New York's crack epidemic is finally speaking on a topic that makes the elite of Tinseltown tremble. He is pointing his finger at 7 legendary black actors who, in his unspoken estimation, sold their psychological integrity for a seat at the high table. In an industry where the #1 job of someone who traded their soul is to act like it never happened, Samuel L. Jackson is the only one loud enough to break the silence. To understand the absolute gravity of Jackson's defiance, you have to look past the Marvel eye patch and the designer tracksuits and unearth the unvarnished reality of his root wound. Long before he was the Spook Chaney of Candyland or the architect of the Avengers, Samuel Leroy Jackson was a man drowning in the dark. Born in Washington, D.C. and raised in the segregated humidity of Chattanooga, Tennessee, his early years were dictated by the suffocating rules of the Jim Crow era and the absence of a father. He didn't find acting because he wanted applause. He found it because he needed a mask for his stutter and a container for his rage. By the late 1980s, while he was performing on the most prestigious stages in New York, he was simultaneously collapsing under a severe addiction to crack cocaine and alcohol. He has openly admitted that his drug of choice was simply whatever was placed in front of him. He performed his first professional roles while hallucinating on LSD, a man so profoundly disconnected from reality that the Hollywood machine should have swallowed him whole and spat him out as a tragic statistic. But the paradox of Samuel L. Jackson is that his absolute rock bottom became his ultimate superpower. 2 weeks after he finished a grueling stint in rehab, he stepped onto the set of Spike Lee's Jungle Fever to play a crack addict. He didn't have to research the role. He had been living it in the basement of his own home. He channeled every tremor of withdrawal and every ounce of domestic shame into the performance, and the world was paralyzed by the terrifying authenticity. The Cannes Film Festival had to invent a special award just to acknowledge what he had done. He emerged from the fire of addiction with a skin so thick that Hollywood's psychological warfare could no longer penetrate it. He realized a lethal truth that day. If the devil of crack cocaine couldn't kill him, the executives at Paramount didn't stand a ghost of a chance. This is the foundation of his zero-fluff existence. He doesn't do statue chasing. He mocks the ritual of award season as a club for the compliant, and he demands that golf be written into his contracts twice a week. He doesn't outrun Hollywood. He outlives its ability to control him. The first names that frequently surface in the wake of Jackson's blunt critiques are Steve Harvey and Tyler Perry. The paradox here is a staggering display of cultural shift. For decades, Steve Harvey branded himself as the ultimate everyman, a comedian fueled by gospel charm, family values, and hard-earned financial wisdom. He was the voice of the neighborhood. But the golden illusion of Harvey's integrity violently fractured for millions of fans the moment he stood shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump in a gold-plated lobby. It wasn't just a handshake. It was a symbolic surrender of his cultural currency. To his critics, that photo was the receipt of a transaction. Harvey, once a self-made titan from the Kings of Comedy era, suddenly looked like another entertainer, willing to trade his authenticity for political access and a seat in the elevator of power. The internet didn't ask for proof of a secret contract. The appearance of compromise was the conviction. He was branded a sellout, a man who aligned himself with the industry machine to ensure his relevance remained permanent. Harvey's concept of rich people thinking became, in the eyes of his detractors, a blueprint for how to abandon the streets that raised you in exchange for a penthouse view. Then there is the monolithic empire of Tyler Perry. Perry's narrative is a billion-dollar fortress built on a foundation of faith in the Medea persona. He famously claimed he would rather sit in a corner broke with the Lord than sell his soul for millions. But in the cynical reality of Hollywood, when you repeat a phrase that often people start looking for the price tag. Perry rose from sleeping in his car to owning a 330-acre studio lot in Atlanta, an empire larger than Disney and Warner Brothers combined. To the skeptics, that level of monolithic power does not come through prayer alone. They point to the way Hollywood enthusiastically rewarded Perry for characters that many believe, including Jackson himself, lean into the very coonery buffoonery that the industry has used to domesticate black narratives for a century. Was Perry's rise a triumph of the black spirit? Or was it the industry rewarding a man for domesticating a narrative they could easily package and sell back to the masses? Jackson's career screams the answer. He never built an empire by making the industry comfortable. He made them bend to him, while Perry and Harvey, in the eyes of many, bent themselves to fit the requirements of the empire. As we move deeper into the shadows of the list, we find what we call the domesticated rebels, Chris Rock and Ludacris. This is where the cost of the Illuminati package, as Cat Williams notoriously called it, becomes visible in the career trajectory. When Chris Rock first hit the scene in the 1990s, he was a lethal truth-teller. He was raw, uncomfortable, and fearless, standing on the shoulders of Richard Pryor and George Carlin. He was the guy who told the truths others were too terrified to whisper. But by the mid-2000s, the venom was gone. The man who once dismantled the hypocrisies of race and politics was suddenly voicing zebras in animated films and writing sanitized sitcoms for network television. He became a Hollywood commodity, his jagged edges carefully filed down until he was safe for primetime consumption. The shattering of Chris Rock arrived in 2022 at the Academy Awards. The slap wasn't just a violent outburst from Will Smith. It was a moment where the world saw a man bound by the invisible strings of industry politics. He stood there on that stage, forced to swallow public humiliation and physical assault because the script of The Professional demanded it. He looked less like a fearless rebel and more like a company man who knew exactly what would happen if he broke character and fought back. Ludacris followed a disturbingly similar arc. Born Christopher Bridges, he was the cartoonish, high-energy king of Atlanta's dirty South rap scene in the early 2000s. His lyrics were explicit, his videos were chaotic spectacles of grit, and his authenticity was his primary weapon. He owned the streets. But then, the transition happened. The rapper who screamed rebellion suddenly suited up for the Fast and Furious franchise, playing a clean-cut, tech-savvy sidekick in a family-friendly blockbuster machine. The paycheck was massive, rumored to be a $10 million per-movie deal for a 20-movie run. But the cost was his lyrical edge. His music faded into a background whisper as his Hollywood persona grew into a sterile, unthreatening brand. It wasn't maturity. It was a silent agreement with the industry. Tone it down and we will give you the world. Cat Williams pointed to this exact transition as proof of the Illuminati package. It's the deal where you trade your radical energy for a permanent seat at the table and a guaranteed check every 2 years. For some, this is the definition of success. For Samuel L. Jackson, it is the definition of a funeral for the soul. And then there is the cautionary tale of Cuba Gooding Jr. He stood on the Oscar stage in 1997 and screamed, "Show me the money," with an exuberance that felt like the ultimate black triumph. Hollywood did exactly that, but they made him work for it in the most humiliating ways possible. Following his win, his career didn't soar into prestige dramas. It plummeted into a string of forgettable, clownish comedies like Snow Dogs and Boat Trip. And all was so fordelkt. In a 2003 interview, Jackson notoriously mocked actors who take clown roles just to stay visible. While he didn't name Cuba, the industry knew exactly who he was looking at. Cuba traded the dignity of a historic win for quick cash and a permanent seat in the visible but irrelevant category. Hollywood doesn't just reward talent, it rewards compliance, and Cuba. Gooding Jr. became the poster child for what happens when you sign a deal without reading the fine print of your own legacy. He traded the crown of an Oscar for the red nose of a jester. Finally, we arrive at the two most colossal figures on the list, Will Smith and Oprah Winfrey. Their stories are the golden illusions of the American dream, but beneath the surface, the whispers of a Burmala Bilsus soul vibe have become a roar. Will Smith's career was a masterclass in orchestration. He transitioned from a West Philly rapper to the Fresh Prince to the most bankable movie star on the planet, with a smoothness that many in the industry found suspicious. For 30 years, he played only the hero, the charming lead, the icon. He kept his music clean while others fought censorship. He was the safe black entertainer the industry could sell to every corner of the globe. But no one climbs that high without a sacrifice. Critics point to the 2022 Oscar incident as the ultimate crack in the mask. Cat Williams argued that the slap wasn't just a performance, it was the industry doing its thing for ratings, a ritual of humiliation that Smith had to participate in to maintain his status. The speculation suggests that Will Smith didn't sell his soul to a literal devil, but to the corporate expectation of perfection, a burden that eventually suffocated his humanity and resulted in a violent public psychological break. He was running so fast to avoid his father's violence that he ended up becoming the very thing he feared on the biggest stage on earth. Oprah Winfrey represents the absolute zenith of this conversation. From a poverty-stricken childhood in Mississippi to becoming the richest black woman in the world, her journey is legendary. But with that level of monolithic influence comes a darkness that most people refuse to look at. Skeptics point to her ties with billionaires and politicians as evidence of an agenda that transcends simple entertainment. They cite her promotion of The Secret and metaphysical spirituality as proof that she tapped into something beyond the human reach to secure her invincibility. People say that when you went on Oprah's show, your life changed, but some argue it changed in a dark and demonic way. Her image is a fortress that nothing can penetrate. She has built such a massive structure of influence that she is essentially untouchable by scandal. But the question Jackson's career forces us to ask is, how much of herself did she have to give up to become a deity of the media? In the back rooms of Hollywood, the whisper is that Oprah isn't just part of the machine. She is the machine. In 2026, the contrast between Samuel L. Jackson and the rest of this list is a philosophical punchline. Jackson is worth $250 million, yet he still talks with the jagged rhythm of the man from Chattanooga. He didn't have to change his accent, his attitude, or his defiance to get the check. He proved that you don't have to sell your soul. You can simply make the industry realize that your soul is the most valuable thing in the room. The other 7 names on this list will forever live in the crossfire of admiration and suspicion. They have the power, they have the studios, and they have the billion-dollar bank accounts. But as Jackson famously implied, the #1 job of someone who traded their integrity for access is to pretend the trade never happened. Jackson doesn't have to pretend. He is flawed, he is loud, and he is real. He didn't outrun Hollywood. He outlived its ability to control him. This is the ultimate paradox of fame. The more you give away of yourself, the more the world gives you in return. But when the lights go down and the assistants leave what is left in the mirror, Samuel L. Jackson looks in the mirror and sees the same man who was expelled from Morehouse for locking board members in a building during a protest. He sees the man who survived the crack pipe and the LSD trips. He sees a man who owns his own narrative. Steve Harvey, Tyler Perry, Chris Rock, Ludacris, Cuba Gooding Jr., Will Smith, and Oprah Winfrey have built empires that are currently defining the 21st century, But the cost of those empires is a question that will haunt their legacies long after the box office numbers are forgotten. Integrity is a currency that cannot be printed by a studio, and once it's spent, you can never buy it back. As we analyze the wreckage and the royalty of Black Hollywood, we have to ask ourselves, is the Illuminati package of fame and stability worth the erosion of the self? Beyond the blockbusters and the gospel-infused charm, which of these icons do you believe has stayed the most true to the streets that raised them? Is it possible to own the biggest film studio in America without losing a piece of your authenticity along the way? Or is Samuel L. Jackson the only one left standing with his soul entirely intact? We want to hear your most honest, unfiltered thoughts in the comments below. Who on this list do you still trust? And who do you think is just playing a role in a script they didn't even write? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ensure you never miss a deep dive into the brutal reality hidden behind the Hollywood illusion. Thank you for watching, and remember, in a city of masks, the man with the loudest voice is usually the only one telling the truth. The story of these 7 actors is not just a list of names. It is a map of the moral compromises required to survive in the belly of the beast. Hollywood is a predator that feeds on the hungry, and it offers the world to those willing to shave off the parts of themselves that are too difficult, or too black, or too real. Jackson's refusal to shave those parts off is what makes him a legend. He didn't just survive Hollywood, he conquered it by remaining uncolonized. While the others built fortresses, he built a legacy of defiance. And in the end, that is the only thing the industry can't take from you. You can have the 30-movie deal and, the 300-acre studio, but if you can't speak your truth without checking with a publicist first, are you really free? Samuel L. Jackson is free, and that is his ultimate box office win. As we look back at the incredible turbulent journey of these titans, we are forced to ask ourselves a deeper question about the media we consume and the idols we worship. We demand perfection from the people on our screens, yet we devour their destruction the moment the cracks begin to show. Beyond the messy divorces, the political handshakes, and the endless tabloid speculation, which of these individuals' profound journeys of self-discovery or self-destruction resonates the most with your own understanding of integrity? In a modern era, where every single moment is commodified and sold for engagement, do you believe we will ever see another actor who refuses the rituals as successfully as Sam Jackson? Drop your most unfiltered thoughts in the comments below. Let us know who you respect the most, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a cinematic deep dive into the brutal reality behind the Hollywood dream. In an industry of ghosts, Sam Jackson is the only one who still has a heartbeat. The weight of these allegations, whether voiced by Jackson or whispered by the public, serves as a mirror held up to our own obsession with success. We celebrate the billion-dollar empire while ignoring the compromises it took to lay the first brick. We cheer for the clean-cut hero while mocking the one who stayed raw and jagged. But the reality is that the sold soul vibe isn't a myth. It's the standard operating procedure of an industry that views human beings as assets. Jackson's career is the exception that proves the rule. He showed that you can be the power behind the throne without becoming the Spook Cheney of your own life. He showed that you can be the power and the truth simultaneously, and that more than any Oscar is the greatest achievement a man can have in Hollywood. As the sun sets over the Hollywood hills and the stars prepare for another night of rituals and retakes, remember the man who demanded golf twice a week and told the producers to go to hell. Remember the man who didn't sell his soul but made the world buy into his truth. Because in a town built on lies, that is the most radical act of all. Thank you for being part of this journey into the dark side of fame. Stay tuned for our next investigation into the secrets they don't want you to know. Until then, keep your eyes open and your integrity guarded. The machine is always watching, but you don't have to let it see you break.